The customs and traditions of men have often been a veil to hide the true worship of God. Could it be that Valentine's Day is one such veil? Could it be that beneath the romance and the sentimentality, there is something else? Something that God never intended His people to take part in? What if I told you that the world's most celebrated day of love is built upon something far darker than you've ever imagined? That the flowers, the chocolates, and the sweet words exchanged between lovers all trace their roots back to something ancient, something hidden beneath layers of time and tradition? Valentine's Day. A day that fills the air with romance, a day when lovers express their devotion, when stores overflow with gifts wrapped in red and gold, and society whispers in every ear, if you love someone, today is the day to prove it. But should love, true love, be dictated by a date on the calendar? Should love be something we are told to celebrate because the world commands it? Or should love be something deeper, something eternal, something far beyond what this world can comprehend? We need to ask the hard questions. Where did this day come from? Who declared it to be the holiday of love? And more importantly, what does God think about it? Because here is the truth. The world has conditioned us to celebrate without question, but history does not forget. It whispers from the past, revealing things that many would rather remain hidden. And when we trace the history of Valentine's Day, we find that it is not a day of biblical love at all. It is not a day that honors marriage, purity, or the selfless love that God so beautifully designed. No, it is a day that carries the fingerprints of something else entirely. Yet, how often do we stop to ask? How often do people pause in the midst of their celebrations to wonder, where did this day come from? Who named it? Who gave it meaning? And does that meaning align with what God calls us to? It is no secret that Valentine's Day has become a commercial empire. The world has turned love into a product, something to be marketed, packaged, and sold to the highest bidder. In the United States alone, billions of dollars are spent each year on flowers, jewelry, and romantic getaways. Companies capitalize on emotion, using sentimental advertisements to persuade people that the more they spend, the more they love. And the people? They follow, almost without question. They rush to buy gifts, feeling the weight of expectation pressing upon them. A husband feels guilty if he doesn't surprise his wife with something expensive. A young man scrambles to find the perfect words to impress his sweetheart. A lonely heart aches feeling left out of the grand spectacle. The world has dictated that love must be put on display, that it must be proven by things that fade away. But is this the kind of love God calls us to? The Bible paints a different picture of love. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. The love of God is patient, selfless, and pure. It does not boast. It does not demand to be seen. It does not need a special day to exist. It is not something that is validated by gifts or grand gestures. And yet, the world has taken love, the most sacred, beautiful thing that God has given, and has made it into a transaction, a fleeting moment wrapped in fancy paper. Think about it. Why is love confined to a single day? If a husband forgets to buy flowers on February 14th, does that mean he no longer loves his wife? If a young woman receives no chocolates, is she unworthy of love? What happens when the flowers wilt, when the chocolates are eaten, when the excitement fades? The world's version of love is temporary. It thrives on emotions that rise and fall, on passion that burns bright and then flickers out. But the love of God? It is constant. It does not depend on the calendar. It is not measured by outward things, but by the heart. But where did this tradition come from? Who decided that love needed a day of celebration, a day when the world would stop and acknowledge it? Surely, if love is genuine, it should not need a reminder, nor should it be something that comes and goes like a passing trend. Many people do not question it. They simply follow what has always been done, believing that Valentine's Day is a harmless, even beautiful tradition. But history tells a different story. This day did not begin with love nor with selflessness. It did not originate with the Bible, nor with anything sacred. It was shaped by ancient rituals, molded by time, and eventually refined by the hands of those who saw an opportunity, not to spread love but to profit from it. And so the world continues on, caught in a cycle that it does not fully understand. Yet beneath the chocolates, flowers, and declarations of romance lies a history that most would rather forget. A history that did not begin with purity or devotion, but with rituals that honored gods of passion, fertility, and indulgence. To truly understand what this day represents, we must peel back the layers of time, stripping away the sentimentality, the commercial polish, and the carefully constructed narrative, and return to where it all began, ancient Rome, in the shadow of a festival called Lupercalia. Lupercalia. Even the name itself carries an ominous weight, whispering of a world far removed from modern celebrations of love. This was not a day of quiet affection, nor was it a time of sacred commitment. It was raw, primal, untamed. It was a festival that existed long before red hearts and candlelit dinners, a festival rooted in rituals of blood, superstition, and unrestrained desire. Between February 13th and 15th, the Romans would gather for a rite that was meant to purify the city and ensure fertility for the coming year. But this was no ordinary purification. The priests, known as the Luperci, would stand before an altar where they would sacrifice goats and dogs. The animals' blood would be smeared upon their foreheads, wiped away with wool soaked in milk, and then, laughing as tradition demanded, they would take the skins of the slain beasts and run through the streets. They did not run aimlessly. They had a purpose. Women, many of them eager participants, would step forward, lifting their garments, stretching out their hands, waiting to be struck by the bloody, tattered hides. It was believed that this ritual would grant them fertility, that it would ensure a safe pregnancy and a healthy child in the year to come. To the modern mind, this seems strange, even grotesque. But to the Romans, it was part of life. A tradition passed down for generations, a ritual embedded in their understanding of the gods and their power. And then there was the matchmaking. Unlike today's concept of romance, where relationships are built on choice, commitment, and genuine affection, the pairings of Lupercalia were left to fate, or rather to chance. The names of young women were written on pieces of parchment and placed in a jar. The men would each draw a name at random, and for the duration of the festival, the two would be considered a couple. Some remained together beyond the festivities, others did not. But the nature of these relationships was far from the biblical standard of love and purity. They were built on impulse, on desire, on the heat of the moment. But why would a society that prided itself on order and civilization celebrate such a chaotic and indulgent festival? The answer lies in their gods. The Romans worshipped Lupercus, the god of shepherds, a deity associated with wildness and protection. They honored Juno Februata, the goddess of love and marriage, believing that she had the power to bless unions and grant favor in relationships. These were gods that demanded celebration, and the people obeyed. Yet, for all its supposed blessings, what did Lupercalia truly bring? Was it purity? Was it faithfulness? Was it the kind of love that God designed? One that was patient, kind, and without selfishness? Or was it something else? Something that twisted love into passion, that replaced purity with indulgence, that took the sacred and turned it into a spectacle? The Apostle Paul, living in a world steeped in these very traditions, warned against such things. For this is the will of God, even your sanctification, that ye should abstain from fornication, that every one of you should know how to possess his vessel in sanctification and honor. But the people of Rome had no desire for sanctification. They sought pleasure, and they called it divine. Then came the shift. As centuries passed and Christianity spread, the early church found itself at odds with many of these Roman customs. How could a faith built on holiness, self-denial, and purity coexist with festivals that glorified the opposite? The church leaders had a dilemma. Lupercalia was deeply embedded in the culture. It was beloved by the people. To ban it outright would invite resistance. And so, they did what they had done with other pagan celebrations. They gave it a new name. In 496 AD, Pope Gelasius I made a declaration. Lupercalia would be no more. In its place, a new celebration would arise, one that honored a man named Valentine, a supposed martyr of the Christian faith. It was a clever move. The people could still celebrate on the same day, but instead of calling it Lupercalia, they would now call it St. Valentine's Day. But did changing the name change the heart of the festival? Did the people suddenly forsake the old ways, casting aside their superstitions and lustful practices? Or did they simply continue as they always had, only now with a Christian label? This was not the first time such a thing had happened. The church had followed the same pattern with Saturnalia, which became Christmas. They did the same with the festival of Ishtar, which became Easter. And now, Lupercalia was being given the same treatment. But was this what God desired? Was this how holiness was meant to be pursued? By blending light with darkness, by painting over idolatry with a thin layer of Christianity? The Bible warns against such compromises. Take heed to thyself, that thou be not snared by following them, that thou inquire not after their gods, saying, How did these nations serve their gods? Even so will I do likewise. Thou shalt not do so unto the Lord thy God. Yet this is exactly what happened. The customs of the world were not cast away. They were adopted, repurposed, given new meanings, but the roots remained the same. And so Valentine's Day was born, not from the heart of God, but from the traditions of a world that did not know him. The sacrifices, the rituals, the pairings, all of it survived in some form, hidden beneath the illusion of innocence. And today, people still celebrate, unaware that what they embrace as a day of love was once a festival of indulgence. The world does not question. It does not ask where things come from or whether they belong to God. It follows, it repeats, it celebrates. But those who seek truth must be different. They must look beyond the surface. They must ask, what does God say about this? Does this align with His will? Is this the kind of love He calls us to? Because if love is to be honored, it must be honored in truth, not in the traditions of men, not in the remnants of ancient gods, not in rituals that once celebrated lust, now wrapped in a more acceptable form. True love, the love that God gives, does not need a festival. It does not need a date on the calendar. It does not need to be repackaged from something unholy. It already exists, pure, untainted, eternal. And so, the question must be asked, if the foundation of something is corrupt, can what is built upon it be pure? If the origins of Valentine's Day lie in the excesses of Rome, in the rituals of Lupercus, in the matchmaking of chance rather than the sacred commitment of marriage, should it still be embraced? The world does not ask, but we must. The world speaks of St. Valentine as though he were a single clear figure. One man, one story, one legacy of love and devotion. But history, when examined closely, does not tell such a simple tale. Instead, it offers fragments, conflicting accounts, layers of legend stacked upon one another until truth itself is lost beneath the weight of tradition. Who was St. Valentine? That question should be simple. And yet, when historians search for the answer, they find not one man, but several. The records whisper of at least 3 different figures, all of whom were called Valentine, all of whom were martyred, all of whom were remembered in different ways. Some say he was a Roman priest, executed under Emperor Claudius II for defying the empire's laws. Others say he was a bishop in Terni, a man who worked in secrecy to wed Christian couples when marriage was forbidden. And still, another account claims that Valentine performed miracles, that he laid his hands upon the blind daughter of a judge and she was healed. But the strangest part of all is this. These stories did not arise at the same time. They evolved. They changed. They were woven together long after the supposed events took place. Pope Gelasius I, the same man who replaced Lupercalia with what we now call Valentine's Day, admitted himself that Valentine's deeds were known only to God. In other words, the details had been lost even by the 5th century. What does that say about the stories that have been told since then? One version of a story is told, then retold, then expanded, until what was once uncertain is accepted as fact. But should we, as seekers of truth, Accept what is convenient? Or should we examine what is real? Let us return to the first major legend, that Valentine was a priest who secretly performed marriages for young soldiers. The story says that Emperor Claudius II had outlawed marriage for men in his army, believing that single soldiers fought more fiercely than those who had families to return to. Valentine, in defiance of the emperor's command, continued to unite couples in the eyes of God. When he was discovered, he was arrested, tortured, and eventually executed. It is a noble tale. It paints Valentine as a champion of love, a man who stood for righteousness in the face of persecution. But there is a problem. There are no records, no historical documents from that era that confirm that such a law ever existed. Would an emperor truly forbid marriage outright? Or is this a later addition to the story, a way of turning Valentine into a romantic hero, rather than simply a man who was executed for his faith? Then there is the second version of his life, the one in which Valentine did not simply marry couples but performed miracles. This account tells of a judge who held him captive, a man who doubted his faith. Valentine, speaking of the power of Christ, was challenged to prove it. The judge brought forward his blind daughter and said, "If your God is real, heal her." Valentine laid his hands upon her eyes, and suddenly, she could see. A miracle. But is there proof? The first written account of this story does not appear until centuries after Valentine's supposed death. Would a tale of such magnitude truly go untold for so long? Regardless of which version people believed, one thing remained the same. Valentine was sentenced to die. But even here, the details are inconsistent. Some say he was beaten and beheaded. Others say he was tortured first. Some claim he wrote a final letter to the judge's daughter, signing it, "From your Valentine." Does this sound familiar? It should. It is the origin of the phrase that now appears in millions of Valentine's Day cards around the world. A farewell message from a condemned man, transformed into a sentiment of romance. But if the truth is so uncertain, if the identity of Valentine himself is clouded in mystery, why has he been remembered at all? The answer lies not in his life, but in the world's desire for symbols. By the time the Middle Ages arrived, Europe was steeped in legend. Stories of saints were told and retold, and as Christianity spread, traditions were built upon stories whether they were true or not. Chaucer, the famous English poet, wrote of Valentine's Day as a time when birds chose their mates, tying the day to the theme of love. By the time the 19th century arrived, Valentine's Day had fully transformed. No longer was it about a saint's supposed martyrdom. It was about romance. The Victorians, obsessed with sentimentality, turned it into a holiday of passion and affection. The greeting card industry flourished, poets wrote verses about love, gifts were exchanged. The transformation was complete. The day that once replaced a pagan festival had become something else entirely. A commercial powerhouse, a day of indulgence, a day where the true history was forgotten and only the marketable version remained. Yet, if the foundation of something is uncertain, what does that mean for what is built upon it? If the man behind Valentine's Day is more fiction than fact, then what exactly is being celebrated? But perhaps the strangest deception of all is not the story of Valentine, but the symbols that have endured with him. Because when people think of this day, when they envision love itself, they do not see a martyr. They see something else entirely. They see a small, winged figure with a bow and arrow. Cupid. He is drawn on cards, painted on shop windows, molded into chocolates. He is harmless, innocent, a mere symbol of affection, or so the world believes. But who, truly, is Cupid? Where did this figure come from, and why has he become the face of modern love? To answer that, we must travel even further back. Because before there was Cupid, there was Eros. Eros, the Greek god of passion and desire. Unlike the childlike figure we see today, Eros was not always portrayed as playful or sweet. The ancient Greeks described him as powerful, dangerous even. His arrows did not simply inspire romance. They drove people into uncontrollable lust, into obsession, into madness. To the Romans, Eros became Cupid, the son of Venus, the goddess of love, and the stories of his arrows remain the same. Those struck by them did not fall in love in the way that the Bible describes love, selfless, patient, kind. No, they fell into passion, into infatuation, into something that consumed them, ruled over them, and often led to destruction. And the heart symbol? The one drawn across Valentine's cards, used as a universal emblem of love? That too has roots in ancient fertility rituals. The heart, stylized in the way we recognize today, was once associated with temple worship, with rites dedicated to the gods of passion and reproduction. And yet these symbols persist. They have been carried forward, stripped of their original meanings, repainted into something beautiful. But should we be content with that? Should we accept something simply because its meaning has changed on the surface? Or should we, as truth seekers, ask ourselves, what are we truly celebrating? Because the Bible warns us of such things. It reminds us, "Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." If the world embraces something, we must ask why. If history is rewritten, we must seek the truth. If a celebration has foundations in deception, we must question its purpose, because love, true love, is not found in myth, nor in sentimentality, nor in the traditions of men. It is found in the one who is love itself. So, as people celebrate, as they exchange gifts and send messages signed "From your Valentine," one question must linger in the air. Who, truly, was Valentine? And why does the world work so hard to remember him? And this is where the question must be asked. Should Christians celebrate Valentine's Day? Some will argue that it is harmless, that it is only about showing love, that it does not have to be connected to its history. But does God ever tell his people to take something unclean and try to use it for good? "Come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you." 2 Corinthians 6:17. There is no room for compromise in those words. There is no suggestion that something can be reshaped into righteousness. There is only a call to leave it behind. And yet, the world whispers otherwise. It tells believers that there is no harm in participating, that their intentions are what matter. But is that true? Does intention erase origins? If a day was born in sin, can it ever truly be purified? If a celebration was founded in lust and indulgence, does it suddenly become holy when we decide to use it differently? The Bible never instructs believers to celebrate Valentine's Day. Not once does it command a day for romantic love. Instead, it calls for love that is lived out daily, not confined to a date on the calendar. It calls for love that is pure, not wrapped in the remnants of ancient impurity. Love suffereth long, and is kind. Love envieth not. Love vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. 1 Corinthians 13:4. Love is not an event. Love is a way of life. Yet the world has taken love and sold it. It has turned it into a business, a product, a thing to be bought and measured. Valentine's Day has become a celebration of worldly love. A love that is fleeting. A love that is tied to emotion rather than commitment. And the people follow, spending billions each year, exchanging gifts as though that is what love requires. But true love, the love of God, was never about material things. It was never about grand gestures or sentimental words. It was about sacrifice. It was about giving without expectation. It was about a love so deep, so perfect, that it was willing to die so that others might live. The love of Christ was not a love celebrated in a single day. It was a love demonstrated through a lifetime, through eternity. For God so loved the world, that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. That is love, a love that cannot be sold, a love that cannot be confined, a love that does not need to borrow from the traditions of men to be made meaningful. Do you see the difference? The world's love says, "Give me." God's love says, "I give you everything." The world's love says, "Love is about how I feel." God's love says, "Love is about how I serve." The world's love is conditional, fleeting, often selfish. But God's love is eternal, unchanging, and pure. And so the choice remains. The world has given its answer. It has chosen to celebrate without questioning, to embrace without seeking truth. But for those who follow Christ, the question must be different. Is love something to be honored in the way that the world dictates? Or is it something to be lived, something to be given freely, something that needs no holiday, no borrowed traditions, no false origins? Because love, true love, does not come from Rome, nor from Lupercalia, nor from any saint whose history has been twisted by time. It comes from God. It always has. It always will. The world is filled with traditions, some inherited, some borrowed, and many unquestioned. Year after year, Valentine's Day arrives, wrapped in ribbons of sentiment and expectation. People exchange gifts, profess their love, and participate in what they believe to be a day of affection and devotion. But as we have seen, its origins tell a different story. One not rooted in biblical love, but in a history that contradicts the very principles God has called His people to uphold. And so the question arises, how should Christians respond? It would be easy to take an extreme approach, to reject anything associated with Valentine's Day outright, to avoid it completely, to refuse gifts and conversations. But is that the most Christ-like response, or does God call His people to something deeper, something wiser, something more powerful than mere avoidance? The Bible speaks of discernment. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be you therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Matthew 10:16. Christ's followers are not to respond with hostility or rigid coldness, but with wisdom and grace. There will be moments when someone, a friend, a co-worker, a family member, offers a Valentine's gift with a sincere heart, not knowing its origins. In that moment, how should a Christian react? Should they reject it outright, risking offense? Or should they accept it, using it as an opportunity to turn the conversation toward something greater? God does not call us to be legalistic in our dealings with others, but He does call us to be a light in the darkness. When Paul stood before the people of Athens, he did not immediately condemn their altar to the unknown God. Instead, he used it as a bridge to reveal the truth. Whom therefore ye ignorantly worship, him declare I unto you. Acts 17:23. In the same way, could it be that the world's misunderstanding of love, its shallow, fleeting, commercialized version, presents an opportunity to point to a greater love? A love that does not fade with time, does not depend on gifts or gestures, does not crumble under the weight of human imperfection. If someone does not know the origins of Valentine's Day, should not a Christian gently lead them to the truth rather than push them away? Should not every conversation, every interaction be an opportunity to reflect the love of Christ? This is the kind of love that the world does not understand, the love that gives without expecting in return, the love that sacrifices, the love that endures. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another. John 13:35. But what about those who do know the origins yet still choose to celebrate? What if a believer, understanding the history of Lupercalia, of the Catholic Church's attempts to Christianize a pagan festival, of the modern commercialization of love, still sees no harm in participating? Here, too, the Bible gives guidance. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. Romans 14:5 here. Conviction is a work of the Holy Spirit, not of human argument. While it is important to speak truth, it is equally important to allow God to work in hearts. Not every conversation needs to be a debate. Not every disagreement needs to be met with correction. Sometimes, the best way to witness is to live differently, to demonstrate love in a way that is so pure, so selfless, that others begin to question whether the world's version of love is enough. Yet, in all things, the believer must remain separate from the world's customs. The Bible is clear. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. There is no command to participate in Valentine's Day. There is no instruction to mark a single day for romance. If anything, the Bible's picture of love is far more radical. It is not limited to a date on the calendar, nor is it driven by emotion. nor does it require outward displays. True love, biblical love, is not self-seeking. It does not demand attention. It does not depend on convenience or tradition. It is daily, it is eternal, it is a reflection of God Himself. And that is where the focus must shift. The greatest expression of love is not found in human relationships, but in the sacrifice of Christ. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. John 15:13. While the world looks to fleeting gestures, the believer looks to the cross. While society encourages indulgence and temporary passion, the Christian walks in a love that is eternal. Valentine's Day may promote the illusion of love, but true love is found in God alone. The world celebrates fleeting romance, but God offers a love that never fades. And so, as Christians navigate this day, their response should not be driven by fear or legalism, nor by blind participation, but by wisdom, by kindness, and by a deep, unwavering commitment to reflect the love of Christ in all things. Because love, real love, was never meant to be confined to a single day. It was meant to be lived every day and every moment through every action. It was meant to point to the one who is love itself.
The world may shine with fleeting lights, a love that fades into the night. They paint the skies with empty dreams, yet love is more than what it seems. But beyond the veil, I hear your call, a love that gave and gave it all. No fleeting vow, no passing flame, but mercy written on your name. Love divine, pure and true, not bound by time, but ever new. Not in gold, nor fleeting days, but in the cross where mercy stays. Oh, love beyond what we have known, Christ alone, our cornerstone. They raise their hearts to gods of stone, but love was shaped in blood alone. Not in passion's trembling hand, but in the scars, the nail-pierced lamb. So I turn away from hollow ways to love that lasts beyond the grave. A sacrifice, a love so free, the gift you gave on Calvary. Love divine, pure and true, not bound by time, but ever new. Not in gold, nor fleeting days, but in the cross where mercy stays. Oh, love beyond what we have known, Christ alone, our cornerstone. No veil remains, the truth is clear, a love that casts away all fear. No fleeting touch, no empty sign, but grace unmeasured, love divine. So let the world chase paper rings, I'll bow before the King of Kings. For in His wounds my heart has found a love that never lets me down.
Real quick, now you can engage even more and support this channel by becoming a member. Becoming a member unlocks amazing resources and helps you connect even deeper. Get access to every image I use, perfect for your wallpaper, studies, or presentations. Need a custom visual for a study group or a Bible verse that speaks to you? I'll design it. And members get to suggest entire video topics they'd love to see explored. Honestly, this is about more than perks. It's your chance to directly shape the content and help me create videos that matter most to you. Check the description for details. Thanks so much for being part of this community. God bless.